you said they should be equal, or should they be kind
equal
of
in weight? I mean, it's that same thing. If they're 5 pounds off, does it matter?
Right.
No. Is it like my shoulder press is 155 pounds by 10, and then like 75 pounds under my chin? That's what we're talking. It's like the minutia doesn't matter. It's like what are the gaping holes?
Okay.
Yeah. And I mean, how would you? I guess. Yeah. How would you train somebody to do that? Would you program them more, or would you program them other things like accessory work to build that up? Like, how would you do that?
After the episode, head over to iTunes or the Apple Podcast app if you have an iPhone, or the Stitcher app if you have an Android device. Go ahead and subscribe and leave us a 5-star review. We really appreciate that. Enjoy.
Head over to shruggedstrengthtest.com and take our free 3-day strength test. We'll send you 3 days of testing that takes about half an hour to about an hour each day. Each day you'll get exercises that we're going to walk you through, showing you step by step what to do. Once you finish the test, submit your results, and then we'll send you a bunch of feedback showing you where we think you could be stronger and then how to fix certain weaknesses that you might have found. Head over to shruggedstrengthtest.com to get started.
So what are the 10 things I have to know about LaCroix?
Well, I don't remember the 10 things, but apparently there's 7 different pronunciations. And if people didn't say it like I said, which was LaCroix or LaCroix, I thought it was wrong.
I'm gonna name drop real quick. I was on the tour bus with the Deftones, and the drummer there, Abe Cunningham, was like every time he said it.
I love a LaCroix.
No, apparently it was invented by this guy in like late 1980s. And it was out there, and no one drank it, and then it was just like found its way in.
Huh.
Yeah.
I mean, for it to survive that long, though, that's pretty cool, though. I mean, if it didn't catch on until recently.
I'm going to be the first to say, fuck LaCroix. That's just terrible.
I fucking love this stuff. This stuff is amazing.
You don't like it?
I think you lost your mind.
I just don't like carbonation. Water's so fucking good. No one gives water any props.
Well, Memphis water, but other people's water is dirty,
That's funny, because last night.
Well, yeah, bottled water, whatever.
Have you had the coconut LaCroix?
No, it's like that's the worst.
That's the worst.
You like that one?
They should get rid of
it. Tastes like you're drinking sunscreen.
Yeah, it does. They should get rid. They need to get rid of that one. They need to get rid of the coconut. They need to get rid of the cranberry, raspberry. Get rid of that one for sure.
Well, what's funny is last night at barbecue, I asked if they had sparkling water. She said no.
Oh yeah, you in a joint, man.
I was kind of pissed.
I think you got laughed at.
Yeah, you did.
I think I got laughed at. But then then I had the water with lemon, and I sat down. I was like, this is really good water. And you just
Memphis
said
water is good as shit.
Natural aquifer.
Yeah.
You're like, ma'am, this water is very delicious. She's like, quit kissing my ass.
I'm pretty sure we were getting laughed at the whole time.
Where'd y'all go eat?
Germantown Commissary.
So we sit down, and she was super
Good
sweet.
barbecue.
She was super sweet. We sit down, and like 2 seconds later, she comes back, and she's like, what would you like to eat? And Alex was like, what'd you say? You're like, I just sat down.
I just sat down.
And she's like, oh, well, if you need extra time, that's fine.
Man, I'm pretty sure we were getting hated on because we came up in there like, bro, like no sleeves and shit. And it's like when
we can get into Asheville
Muscle Support Group, man. This is exactly like that. Oh, I can't hear myself.
Are we doing? Did y'all? I just put the mic on. Are y'all doing shout outs for the show?
No.
Are we talking about sponsors yet?
No.
Well,
yeah.
Did you turn all the volumes down? Because I can't hear myself at all.
It got really quiet. I want to hear myself better. There we go.
Felt like we were yelling.
There we go.
Yeah,
there we go.
I mean,
it was pretty loud.
It was just turned up.
All right.
Well, so
all the way turned up.
We were just talking about, like, we have this thing in Asheville called the Asheville Muscle Support Group. And they're not.
There's a bunch of hipsters in Asheville.
Yeah, so especially on the west side of town, a bunch of hipsters. And like, you guys probably have some skinny jean, like, hardcore skater dudes that listen to the show.
Memphis, yeah.
Like, no disrespect, but, like, in larger groups, they could bring down a guy with muscles. So if you're the only one with muscles going into like a sketchy coffee shop,
you're like not cool for having muscles.
No. So they look at you all weird, and then so we created the Muscle Support Group, which has like hot spots in town. Like you have to go with a friend.
You know what I see when I look at you?
What?
400 dead animals. Wow. That's what I see. That kind of hate.
Yeah. And it's like this hissing like.
Oh yeah, you told me this one time you went to ice cream. What was that? The hopper. Yeah. This dude was like, "What can I get for you, big guy?"
Yeah.
Like,
so they call me. Well, they would call Alex or you big guy.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
No, Carl Winslow is big guy, the only big guy.
well, so I'm like, first off, I'm
Big guy.
not a big guy, but second off, that's rude.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. Hate.
Gotcha.
So much hate.
Oh
yeah.
my God.
So if we're gonna start this way, I want to start with a shout out. You know, I just got back from Minnesota, went to the Granite Games. Great time, great competition, and I want to give a shout out to Ray at Ray's Barbershop for this wonderful
I thought it was
haircut.
Al's.
Al.
Maybe it was Al's.
It was
Oh
Al.
man, you fucked it up
Oh,
already.
That's rude.
Someone's barbershop.
You said
Oh
you said
my
it was
God.
Al.
Was it Al?
It was so incredible, worth mentioning. You
Al
forgot his
Ray.
name.
That was his name.
Okay.
Al Ray.
Al Ray.
Anyways, yeah, man. When this dude was like going back. It was going back like 50 years in time. He like there's a little nook and cranny place inside a shopping mall. I walk in, he's just sitting there reading the paper, and I was like, "Are you Al Ray?" And he's like, "Yeah, man. Sit down. Doesn't take cards, so make sure you bring cash. Go get your chop on."
You paid for that haircut?
Yeah. Paid
Wow.
$11, dude. I was there for like 45 minutes.
Wow.
He straight
Shit.
razored
I don't know
everything.
if I paid for that haircut.
My
I'm
whole
kidding.
face.
No, you look good. Remember
Ears,
we got
neck.
haircuts in Houston for Worlds,
It's
and
like
we
a-
got fucked up.
Oh man, it's
We
a
got
thing I
fucked
do
up.
when I travel. I'm like, I gotta get a haircut, and Brandy's like, you always do this. I'm like, I just like to feel refreshed. I don't
So
know what
fresh
it
and
is.
so
I-
clean.
I would make sure that I have, I have, and I don't have much hair. It's like thinning all strange and shit. But I have what I call a therapist, and she's like a hairstylist. So it's like half of it is cutting my hair, hybrid if you're watching, and half of it is gossiping.
Making you feel good.
Oh,
It's making
yeah.
me feel good. So it's
Yeah.
it's not therapy, and it's not totally like
I don't like that.
hairstyle.
I'll
It's
go get. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, it's therapy, but we're friends, so I
Yeah,
don't.
I'll go
I
get a
hate that
haircut.
shit.
I like when they have conversation with me. It's weird when you go in and
I'm
they'll
actually
say a word.
No, I want them to shut up and just.
Oh, I'd
Cut my hair.
rather talk. All
You
I've
like
day.
actually
talk a little
never been to a barber and or like got my hair cut at a place.
Really?
Oh, your mom cut your hair.
Yeah,
right?
my mom. Yeah, hey, I'm not ashamed to admit that. Fuck everybody who thinks that that's fucking weird.
Nobody
but
says that, dude.
Yeah, well, I
Take
know.
it easy.
I get some
Nobody
hate.
says
I get
that.
some- I
Very
get some- I know.
defensive.
I mean, well, I've gotten a lot of hate for that.
Now you
but
gotta
you
have
know
comments.
what? I'm
Oh,
a-
dude, mom
I'm
cuts
pr-
his
Hey,
hair.
my
Wait,
mama cuts my hair.
Where's
okay?
the hate coming from?
That's
It
an
was-
insecurity
it
coming
was-
out.
it was
We
years.
struck a deep
It
chord.
was
right
it was
there.
years of hate built up.
Welcome to Barbell Shrugged, guys. I'm your host, Mike McGoldick. Let's finally get this thing rolling.
Yeah, for real.
Here with Alex Macklin,
Sure.
Who I still get my mama to cut my hair.
CTP behind the camera, and mic'd up
Shaka
again.
bras.
And our special guest today is Zach Greenwald.
Is this Shaka Bra?
It's Rockin' Bra.
Shaka bra.
Shaka Bros.
Shaka Bra.
Oh man.
Welcome to the show, Zach. Thanks for coming up, man. We're here at Faction Strength and Conditioning in Memphis, Tennessee. Zach came out to hang out with us for a couple of days. We did some training early this morning and did some filming and asked some questions. Got some really cool answers.
Videos soon to come.
Yeah,
we
for
got
sure.
some awesome training video footage of Zach, because Zach is my coach, and walking you through
Mm-hmm.
how he trains his athletes and
Yeah.
things like that. It's really cool. You definitely should check it out.
So, Zach, tell the people who you are. Why should they listen to you today?
That's a good question.
Who the
But
fuck are
Who you be?
and in the few occasions that I've been interviewed on podcasts, people ask like what you do,
Uh-huh.
and I'm like, next time I'm gonna have that like quick phrase,
that elevator pitch.
Yeah.
That 5 minute,
and I was
30
like,
second thing.
I'll definitely have it ready by and then I
Yeah.
don't know. No, but I work with I consider myself a weightlifting coach and a CrossFit coach and a return to play specialist. So I have half my team who comes to me with
Mhm.
no injury history at all, and half who are looking to avoid shoulder surgery, back surgery, or just looking to resolve nagging aches and pains.
Gotcha. So you would say your area of specialty is removing pain, helping people move better, feel better. So do you get a lot of athletes that come to you that are kind of banged up already?
Yep, a good number of them are banged up.
Yeah.
And I feel pretty confident in that area and being able to help those athletes. And over time, what I'd like to get much better at, because weightlifting really calls to me, maybe at least in terms of my own interest, a little bit more than CrossFit does, but I have so much more experience needed to get better at competition coaching.
Yeah.
So what I'm really proud of is that a lot of my athletes who come through start in pain, but then it's like a trick. Like then I just keep them around because they're healthy,
Right.
Mhm.
and then they just keep performing.
Yeah.
And I've had a few athletes who compete internationally in weightlifting. We're heading to University Nationals in New Orleans, where I have an athlete who'll be competing there at a very high level, looking to medal.
Anthony?
Yeah, Anthony.
Anthony,
Yeah,
yeah.
this is 69 kilo lifter I have. That's
What's his full
a
name?
Stud.
Anthony Konis.
Konis.
Okay, cool.
Dude's a beast.
He's an animal. And yeah, so what I'd love to get better at is having weightlifters or CrossFitters see me separate of the rehab stuff, though it is a very nice luxury to be able to handle both.
Now, how'd you get started in this type of training? Or in this programming, rather? Yeah, like how'd you get started?
In terms of general coaching or in terms of the rehab side?
Just the rehab, like the rehab side. Yeah, how'd you get started?
Yeah,
Where did it all begin?
Yeah.
So it started when my
little brother died.
My now fiance, who at the time was my girlfriend, we vacationed. This was in a senior year in college. We vacationed from Chapel Hill to Asheville, North Carolina.
You went to UNC Chapel Hill.
Yep, I'm a Tar Heel. Go Heels. And they wanted to go train at a CrossFit gym, and I was like, no way, I don't want to do this. Like, I'm on vacation.
That stuff's unsafe.
No thanks. It's unsafe. No, I was doing CrossFit at the time. So, but then finally they convinced me, and I went to CrossFit Asheville, and I saw this guy whose name's Corey Duvall. He's a chiropractor out of Asheville.
I know Corey. Great dude.
Yeah, he's an awesome dude. And I was like, man, this guy's helping 80-year-old squat, and he's working over there with someone who looks like they've never lifted a day in their life, and they're deadlifting, and they report having back pain. And I was like, as someone who was interested in potentially pursuing physical therapy, I was like, whoa, like super grateful that I actually went. So then I graduated, and then was in touch with Corey that whole time.
Yeah.
Moved out to Asheville, and then worked at, it was CrossFit Asheville and his clinic in the same facility, and he mentored me to where I am now. And
so you worked with, you told me that story that you met up with Rebecca Gurdon, and now was that kind of your first athlete, or?
So I have one athlete. I have a 53-kilo athlete who's a partner of mine. Her name's Becca Lee, who was technically my first athlete. Okay. But Becca Gurdon, who was formerly a weightlifter at Muscle Driver USA, has lifted with MASH forever. Yeah. If you know MASH, then you probably know Becca, because this girl's like his daughter. And yeah, we walked together. We were in the walked to graduation together. We were in the same program, and so she experienced an injury to her back and reached out to me, and I was able to help her as I was learning. Yeah. And I was like, okay, well, this feels good. I helped my first athlete resolve some pain. And then I get a call from Travis Cooper, who's one of America's top weightlifters, and I was like, this is awesome. Like, I love and admire like all of those Muscle Driver guys, and would watch all those videos with Glenn and John and James Tatum and Travis Cooper. So to have Travis reach out to me saying, hey, I have this much time before Worlds. I don't think I'm going to make it. What can we do? Was like the first like big challenge that I took on, I think, under like the strength ratio name.
What did he do?
So Travis had injured his back, but continued training and competing for the American Open. This was in 2014, which is Alex's story. And
we made a movie about that.
And then, so Travis reached out to me, and he says, well, I really have no plans right now because I can hardly move, low back injury, and can you help me? And I was able to help him, and he went to Worlds, and he just kept gaining steam, and did really well at World Championships.
So healthy.
Yeah, and since then has been injury-free. So that was awesome.
So do you work with primarily weightlifters, or do you work with CrossFitters, or who do you work with?
I would say like general pop is who I work with most. Just regular fitness enthusiasts who are looking to resolve pains. And then probably next would be weightlifters, and then CrossFitters, though I've worked with pro grid athletes too.
Okay. So you had talked about you wanted to pursue physical therapy at one point. And what was your background prior to that? Like, what did you study? Did you go to school to study any of this, or?
So I studied at Chapel Hill. The program is called Exercise and Sports Science.
Okay.
Oh yeah, that's what you do after that. You just everyone, what are you doing after this, PT?
Well, that's what everyone says.
No one wants to, but everyone says PT.
Yeah, they would say like, "What do you want to do with your career?" And everyone would say PT. But I mean, I think that's what people wanted to do. And what was really fascinating is that this whole time after school, I'm taking classes to go to physical therapy school, like classes that I didn't get as part of my major that were prerequisites, and I'm doing poorly in my assignments so that I can help Travis Cooper resolve his pain.
Yeah.
And because I'm just putting
so much. Your passion. You knew what your passion was.
Yeah, I was putting so much energy into it. Yeah. And what was really cool is that, and with no disrespect to any PT who might be on an insurance track where they can't do certain things, like I was like, Travis, with my understanding and what I've learned right now, I'm going to help you by having you deadlift, by having you squat. It'll be in certain ways, and we're going to have certain guidelines, but that's how we got better with things that I might not have been able to do otherwise. And things started picking up, it was just kind of word of mouth from there.
Yeah.
So I kind of drew my apps back from school, and I was like, I'm going to go all in on this and see what happens.
Is this when Strength Ratio started?
Yeah.
Strength Ratio is your company?
Strength Ratio is the company, and it started in February of 2015.
So
Oh, go ahead.
I was going to ask, tell me a little bit about the name Strength Ratio, because what it sounds like is athletes come to you and they want to get fixed, and you seem to have a really good understanding of balance within an athlete. So tell me about some of your training principles and how you would apply that to helping people feel better when they move.
Yeah, so so Strength Ratio, the name was invented by my fiance, and as you mentioned, there's
That's a very important shout out.
Yeah, right.
But she invented it, and
she's a keeper. That's why you put a ring on that.
And every time at the gym, she loses it for 2 seconds every day, and it freaks me out. But no, so I think there are two major principles behind what I do. The first of which is, and structural balance or fixing weaknesses has become not really a buzzword, but I think like a hot topic.
Yeah,
because
sure.
buzzword
Yeah,
I think
for
sounds
sure.
kind of like negative, but it's very worth talking about. And today, hopefully, we can maybe get into, at least in my words, what that means. But structural balance and energetic balance. So that idea of ratios,
like energy system balance, like
energy system
aerobic
balance.
and versus anaerobic.
Yep. So the idea that can we quantify in some way, shape, or form one exercise to another, one energy system to another, and then the other realm is this other mystical kind of strange thing that involves a form of biofeedback that was invented by a man named Dave Delanave out in Minnesota, who I think has since moved to Philadelphia. But a shout out to Dave. We can dive into what he discovered and how my mentor at the time, Corey, adapted it, and then how I've been using it with my athletes.
Yeah, we did a video on that this morning,
with the biofeedback. Hey, let's talk about that for a second.
Break it down.
Yeah, break it down.
Okay.
Yeah, let's talk about this.
So
you use biofeedback to kind of gauge your athlete's state of stress or ability or readiness.
Yeah, so to first define biofeedback is just using your body's markers to impact some type of training. Or maybe adjust some type of training.
A decision on what type of training?
Yeah.
And it's objective. It's not like, I feel good.
So people always say, listen to your body.
Right.
Totally.
What you're presenting is a way to figure out objectively.
Yeah. So in the aerobic world, in the endurance world, they're like, we've been using biofeedback forever, right? Like you have heart rate monitoring, you have heart rate variability. That's a pretty easy science. And the challenging thing with the human body is that we know so little about our connective tissue than we do our aerobic systems. We really know so little, and I've consulted and spoken with Andy Galpin about this.
Connective tissue meaning like the tendons, the muscles.
Yeah, everything, really. Everything not including the cardiorespiratory system. And on the grand scheme, we know very little, but what Dave Delanave discovered was that and if you're not watching right now, that by simply standing with our knees relaxed, if you just tuck your chin to your chest and hang towards the floor.
Kind of like a Jefferson curl.
Just a forward, like a Jefferson curl, like a forward fold.
Unloaded.
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 Your knees aren't deliberately extended, they're relaxed, is that you can measure stiffness against gravity, which is allowing or preventing you from going further down.
Go ahead and show us one for the video, folks.
Well, do you think the mic will stay on, CTP?
Yeah, I'll stay on.
Okay, so
That's a $2,000 headset, son. If it falls off, we quit.
The idea is that my knees are in a relaxed position. For the viewers, you would relax. You're standing. You have your knees in a soft position.
This is a play along, everybody.
Tuck your chin to your chest, round and hang.
Look at that flexibility.
So right now, this is why this is such a fascinating test, is because you can do it anywhere. It's easy to use. You don't need any fancy equipment. You just need to know how to do it and what the implications are. You might discover, and I invite you to try this, you might discover other implications, and we can dive into what we've kind of discovered. But the idea is that you can use this to assess readiness. You can use this to assess if something was mentally or emotionally stressful only versus physically stressful, or if you're actually physically challenging yourself.
Yeah.
And we don't know exactly what's going on because, like I said, we know so little about connective tissue, but we observe changes in this flexibility before and after exercise, when you push yourself.
Yeah.
So there's something going on.
And is this just measurement of physical stress? Like, have you done this after an argument with your fiance?
I have not done.
We get in a fight. You look over in the corner. He's like,
have not done enough in an argument with my fiance. But what you find, in my belief, is that emotional and mental fatigue chronically
it's all connected.
leads to physical tension and stress.
Absolutely.
Maybe not in the moment in the gym when people are after moving around, but if you're worried about that podcast that you have to be on and what that's going to be like, and you get all stiff, like you're actually going to get tight, which we've seen.
Yeah.
So
don't be scared, homie.
So, go ahead. Yeah. So how do you use this test?
So for the audience listening, or if you're watching, you would walk into the gym and perform this test right away.
Mm-hmm.
Over time, you'd have an understanding of the furthest that you can hang down.
So a baseline.
A baseline.
Right.
Okay.
Alex stands on plates. McGee and I earlier stood on a box.
Because we're better.
Because we're better. Because we're taller. And so you just get a sense of your baseline flexibility. Now, you might not walk into the gym at that baseline flexibility. You might be short.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why we encourage people to warm up, because you might not be in a ready state.
That's what I was going to ask. So, like, what if you're setting this baseline and you're, like, already really stressed and kind of in a bad place, and then, like, that's your baseline test for every day, and then every day you come in to train and you're like, I'm not ready to train ever. You know what I'm saying? So, do you need to, like, be fresh and feel good, maybe do a warm-up to kind of set that baseline?
Maybe do a few baseline tests and take the trend?
So, like, let's just say I have someone who's fresh off of surgery, which has happened, like discectomy surgery, and it's first day, and I have this person check their flexibility. It really depends on that day and when they start. So that person, and this has happened, that person who's just had back surgery might only get to here.
Yeah.
And they're really stiff.
Yeah.
But the beautiful thing is that you can see that stiffness dissipate over time.
Okay.
So although they might only be here with no lumbar or thoracic or cervical flexion, over time they might hang lower down.
Okay.
So your baseline is not the first point you reach to, it's the longest that you're able to achieve.
Okay.
And that will get longer over time.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you come in the gym, and then what do you do once you see the feedback? So you have the baseline, and let's say you come in one day and you're a little short of that baseline.
So if you're a little bit short of that baseline and you can't, at least how I've learned to implement this and how Alex has used it in his training, is that if after, let's say I usually cap them like 10 minutes, if you're not able to get to that baseline, which we're saying assesses readiness for heavy levels of exertion, then we want to keep it light. We want to keep it easy.
Yeah.
So rather than just laying on a foam roller for 40 minutes, which sometimes people in injured state do, and that just doesn't do anything for us.
That's just your body's way of maybe saying, like, if you're spending that much time on a foam roller, you're probably just tired.
Yeah. And what we've
a lot of it is just you don't know what to do. You don't know what else to do.
You're fearful.
Right.
And the idea is that if you can't get to that flexibility, we found that light, easy, deep, full breathing movement. So Alex might have done a bear crawl down this mat.
Some locomotion work. Some light carrying, light exercise overall will potentially help him get to that level of readiness. Okay.
And it's a recovery tool. I mean, if you come in and you're super, super tight and you can't ever get there, well, that means that your body is super stressed right now, and it probably shouldn't. You shouldn't take on any more stress. You need to actually recover.
Yep.
So if you do things that are like light or with the deep full breathing, that helps with recovery. And then usually the next day, for me at least, I feel better and I'm ready to go.
Yeah. I think I kind of.
Well, let's backtrack a little bit real quick, because I feel like we got away from it. You were saying he has 10 minutes is what you cap him on to then regain that. To then go back and test and see if he improves.
If Alex says that he has 90 minutes in the gym, I don't want to have him just. It's like, hey, coach, I was in the gym for 40 minutes, finally got there, and then went hard in the gym. That's just wasted time. So based on how much that athlete tells me they have to work with in their training, I'll give them a certain window. But it's not like an exact
So in this
percentage.
example, it was 10 minutes. So he has that 10 minutes to find that, to kind of loosen up if he can.
To see if he can get to that baseline.
And if he retests and he finds that it didn't improve, then give us the options here.
Yeah, so for my weightlifting athletes and for my CrossFit athletes, and this might be news to a lot of weightlifters, is they'll always have some type of cardiovascular piece.
Weightlifter doing cardio.
Weightlifter doing all my weightlifters listening. They know they do cardio. They might not, they obviously don't do as much cardio as a CrossFitter, but they do cardio. We can get into maybe like what the importance of that is a little bit later, but they do cardio, and if that's written on their program and they know that they're not getting flexible, I either have the weightlifter do bar work or do their cardio session, which is easy, or if it's the CrossFitter, I just have them do their easy work first.
Yeah.
And if on the other side, you walk into the gym, you might even be feeling good physically and mentally. You might check and you're at the longest position you've ever been with this test that I showed.
Which would be good.
Which would be a good thing. It means that your body's ready to go hard and lift weight or to go fast.
Yeah.
I think I've noticed that maybe in a different way with a lot of my training. So I traveled this weekend, and when the next morning I did a pretty tough session, but I went in the gym, and typically after travel, my body does not feel that great. I feel very tight, and it takes me a long time to warm up. But for some reason this day, I warmed up really quickly, and that's kind of a sign to me usually. Now I've been doing this for a long time, so I know my body that way. But when I had snatches and like overhead squats, I warmed up like in 10 minutes. Like usually I'm fighting to warm up for those movements. This was really quick. So it was like a big indication, like, now I can push today, and I feel really good. And so kind of similar.
Yeah, and for the viewers listening, they might be like, well, what's the significance? And Alex and I were talking earlier that saying, well, how well do you know your body, or athletes know their bodies? And sometimes that's not always true. We might have funky injury histories. We might be stressed about a particular exercise. So you have this constant balance of like your ego wanting to push and things that you're fearful of. So this is our way of allowing athletes to know with more objectivity what they're ready for on that day versus just guessing, which can have huge consequences for people rehabbing from injury and huge consequences for people who are looking to improve strength. We spoke a little bit behind the scenes about in improving strength, you have two parties really, or two ideologies of I'm going to give someone a minimal effective dose, the tiniest bit that they need to get better over time. And this idea of maximal recoverable volume, which was coined by Dr. Israetel more recently. And the idea is that these two, one has a steeper slope, the other has a not as steep a slope. And over
the minimum
time,
effective response is the not as steep.
Is not as steep, and maximal recoverable volume gets you ultimately to the same place.
They both get you to the same point, but one's faster.
But faster, which for an Olympian might be like, hey, you're my Olympic coach. I need to be there by 2016. We got to go hard. The people in the minimal effective dose,
maybe general fitness population,
or general fitness population say, well, we don't want to go maximal because then we can go too hard.
Or even people that are rehabbing from injuries.
So using this test allows you to know, for instance, minimal effective dose and maximal recovery volume. There's some gray area in between. Maybe we can begin to fill in the gray area.
Gotcha.
And the best practical example, and hopefully this is coming through for those who are just listening and haven't seen the test yet, is that if you can know objectively how much challenges you and you're coming from injury, you don't have to trust blindly into someone telling you what to do. Like I Skyped in with Alex. He did 95-pound deadlifts for a set of 8. And he might not have thought that was challenging, but he lost his flexibility.
Mentally, it wasn't. It's not a heavy weight, but your body sees that as a stress, and that was eye-opening to me. I was like, "What? What just happened?"
So on the rehab side, what I would have done prior to having this test is like, Alex, whoa, 95 pounds by 8 was challenging for you. I'm going to raise 5 pounds at a time over this long, and we're going to make very conservative progress, which is not bad. It's just a minimal effective dose. But instead, if Alex can use this test to determine his readiness, well, he went from 95 pounds by 8 to the next week 155 to a month later doing 355 and having that not affect his flexibility or his stiffness where 95 pounds initially did.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so it's a great way for coaches to see how hard they can push their athletes.
Because I think
because their athletes are ready for it sees if they're ready for it.
Do you track it? Do you have your athletes list like, okay, this day, like along with their programming results that they would enter you and give you as a coach? Do you have them track how the test went and let you know how they felt, or what?
So I'll be able to determine by the results if they were pushing or not.
Okay.
So let's just say Alex did a 5x5 in a squat. If I see results written, I know that means he was ready. He went for it.
Gotcha. So you're trusting that they were mature and followed the protocol.
Yeah. So people might ask, well, and of course, like I'm always looking for bigger sample sizes and want to invite more and more people to try this out on their own, is because when I first started, it was this group of my athletes is going to use it, this group's not. The group that wasn't was going to still do the test and let me know what happens. The other was going to respond as we had deemed appropriate. And the people who would dig a hole, meaning they would do 2 sets of a squat, and then they would observe, hey, coach, my flexibility never returned, and it felt super hard, and my hips started acting up. And I just said, no, do what's written, because I said 5 by 5. That's my best guess on any given day.
Yeah.
But they plow through, and they feel like crap the next day.
Sure.
Whereas someone else might do 2 sets of 5, because we often don't think, like, sometimes maybe we only need 1 set of something, 2 sets of something. And this will tell you if that's true.
Yeah.
You might, it's like, man, what do I do if I'm tight for 10 minutes after 2 sets of squats?
Right.
Well, that day, that was all you needed.
Yeah. So sometimes understanding someone's training age and how much volume they can handle or what their minimum effective dose is takes time to figure out. This could be a great tool to kind of figure that out in the very beginning, like through an assessment phase when you just start with a client.
It's so beautiful for assessment phase because you do no guessing.
Yeah.
You just see clear as day that shortening. And then the athlete says they can see for themselves.
Yeah.
Having been injured, you kind of feel like you're swimming through like really thick water. You just don't know what to do. You feel very vulnerable. But when I can show someone that, like, hey, I'm just going to guide your program, we're going to listen to what your body says, I think that's a lot more approachable.
Yeah, one of the things when I first started working with Zach was my lower back was injured, and I did it, pulling off the floor, and well, one, I was super imbalanced in terms of strength versus pulling versus squatting strength. Like I could squat front squat over 400 pounds, but I couldn't pull 400 pounds off the floor. So it was like a big.
That's just so mind blowing.
Yeah, it was a huge imbalance, And I had been so afraid of pulling off the floor that I just avoided deadlifts altogether. So when Zach had me do deadlifts, I was like, "What are you doing? Like, I do not want to hurt myself. Like, stop giving me deadlifts." But what he showed me is that by doing the test, my body actually liked doing deadlifts. Like my range of motion would increase when I did that flexibility test, would increase when I did deadlifts. And so that kind of helped me get over the fear of doing deadlifts.
Because it basically showed you, like, hey, my body's responding to this positively.
In a positive way, right.
Okay.
And he also showed me that certain things like squats made me super tight.
Yeah.
So it was kind of it's a great educational tool to show an athlete, like, hey, this is your body likes doing this. We can do this as long as we go about it, a smart way.
Gotcha.
So that's like the one half of the what I do that I think I wouldn't do otherwise, and work with people remotely and across the globe if I didn't have it. I honestly wouldn't feel comfortable doing it. Now I do.
Yeah.
But what I did do with Alex, in addition to teaching this, is just gather data on his numbers. So like he said, his pull was far behind his squat. And there were some other things too where we can just look at simple ratios that a lot of people kind of throw their arms up about and say, well, there's much more to lifting than to these ratios, right? Which I totally agree, but I think when people hear about imbalances,
people talk about, we should be balanced, or ratios, like front squat should be X of this. And
so for instance, the Russians say the front squat should be 90% of the back squat. American coaches say it should be 85%. I don't care. Like, I don't care that minutia. I mean, you may say 5% difference is a lot, but let's just say I'll toss that up to relative limb length segments, right? I don't care if Alex is 85% of his back squat or 87%, but if he's like 40% relative to his back squat, that's like, woo, that speaks big.
Yeah.
If his pull, which was the actual case, is 20% below the front squat, it's like, man, well, we got to look out for this. And I think it's a matter of coaches actually writing programs that reflect this basic evaluation, which I don't think is happening as well as it could be.
Right.
Sure.
Well, you were saying yesterday, they were like, okay, well, we know that the front squat should be, or the snatch should be 80% of the clean. But yet, if you have an athlete who can't do that, why are you not programming anything to bring that up?
So basically, like, a lot of people will talk the talk about the ratios, but you don't see it being done a lot.
Well, and it might just be that they don't see the significance behind it, right? And I do actually believe that people's limitations in terms of mobility and people's limitations in terms of performance can be analyzed by an evaluation or a kind of a quest for finding what just sucks.
Yeah.
You know, it's like not really like where are you kind of like balanced. You don't have to be perfectly balanced. No one's going to be.
Some sport, in sport of weightlifting, it's okay to be a little bit imbalanced.
You want to be.
Right.
To perform your sport, you want to be. You just can't be imbalanced enough to where you can't actually perform.
Right.
And that's where I think weightlifting coaches can be a little bit more mindful. If you have your athlete squat 4 times a week and they're pulling once a week, and you're aware of these percentages, and we know that a clean pull is about 100% of a back squat. A deadlift is a little. I mean, we've seen CrossFitters do 15 to 20% more. Weightlifters, I think, who are afraid of pulling, try to bring the percentage down because they want to squat more. But, you know, it's like if you're writing 4 squats and 1 pull, and his pull is 20% less, is that the best program for this individual? Probably not.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think it comes down to what the athlete's needs are. And if it's sport-specific, like something like weightlifting, your ratios and numbers are probably going to be a little different than what you might need in CrossFit.
Yeah, but I mean, what
versus general population. So
right.
You need to figure out like what is important for that athlete specifically with what they're trying to get to.
Well, in CrossFit, I mean, you pretty much, from what I've been experiencing, you really can't suck at anything.
You can't suck at anything, but things can still get through the cracks if you're not mindful of the programming. So the way Corey taught me was, let's break things down. Lifting strength, so like from the floor to your hips, pushing and pulling in different planes, as well as
so vertical plane, horizontal plane.
Yep, all those planes. And
for the viewers, we lost the camera. We'll be right back. but continue.
So lifting, pushing, pulling, and squatting. And what you can do if you're a CrossFit gym owner or if you program for CrossFitters, what you might need to do before you have any data on them is just look to tally up, when you write programming, some type of harmony amongst those major motions.
Okay.
You might, we can go into carrying and how carrying could better be used in CrossFit, but like just lift, squat, push, pull, and just start
like
there.
farmer's carries and yoke carries, yokes and things like that.
But in terms of basic lift, squat, push, pull, I've looked at CrossFit programs like you have 20 pulls, 2 pushes, 1 deadlift day, and 5 squats. And if that population, like there's softwares that a lot of gyms use that give them an avatar. So if over time you have a sense of your avatar and your population's bench pressing more in their squat, well then you can use that avatar to shift the frequency with which you're programming certain strength exercises.
So what do you think is more important to figure out first? The imbalances that the athlete might have, or where they need to be, and then work backwards? So, for example, we did the Shrugged strength test, and it's a test that we put together that has a bunch of different movements, pushing and pulling, horizontal, vertical pressing and pulling, things like that, and squatting. And people wanted an answer so bad on what the ratio should be.
Right.
And we can't give that answer because we don't know what you're trying to be specific to. So some people wanted to know the ratios for the front squatting because they wanted to get their Olympic lifts better. Like, well, that's a totally different answer than someone who's general fitness.
Pop. Yeah.
Right. So which comes first?
I think the first thing is that you don't take the percentages as an exact science because they're not. They are guidelines. So if you know that they're guidelines, you know that you're looking to make sure that nothing's way down in the hole.
Way down off.
Right. Like you said, that example of the 85 to 90%, less focus on that little detail and more about, is his front squat ratio 40% off?
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, huge differences.
And when you see people who are injured, that's the kind of stuff you see.
Yeah.
I've never, the people who seem to be most concerned about the ratios are totally, like, they're healthy, they're fine, because they have some awareness about it, right? If you don't have an awareness about it, or you just want to train what you're good at, which a lot of us just want to do, that's when you put yourself in a position where you might wake up one day and you're like, damn, I can bench press what I can back squat, or I can back squat 30% more than what I can pull off the ground.
Right.
Well, that would be awesome.
So you just want to be aware. I think gym owners and CrossFit gym owners it would be in their best interest to have just a general awareness. And if you have an athlete who has aches and pains and things just aren't really resolving by scaling, look at their numbers. You might see
need to test them.
Yeah, you test them.
You might see that it's like, okay, you've been to class in the past 5 days. You've done 6 back squats and you've done 1 deadlift, and your back's hurting, and your deadlift is below your back squat.
Yeah.
Okay, well we're gonna just give you a little bit more back squat dosage, and I think that's all that really takes. Not all it takes.
You mean deadlift?
Sorry, a little bit more deadlift. And you can start making these minor adjustments with a general understanding of these ratios. Doesn't have to be those two.
So you're saying it would start by looking at the numbers, essentially.
Yeah, usually when people are in pain, what I'll do is I'll check their flexibility first, see how their body responds to what the flexibility is saying. What's getting them tight, what's not, and then in the back I'm mindful of what their relationships are.
Yeah, because it could seem very counterintuitive. Like I just talked about the earlier point, like somebody who hurt their back doing deadlifts, giving them more deadlifts. Like it was like, what are you doing? But if that flexibility test is what shows the stress or not.
Exactly. So, you could develop pain and it kind of goes both ways, but when you develop pain due to overuse, you're also underusing all of these other areas.
Right.
So you might put yourself in a position where you hurt so bad with squats, and you're like, well, that one time in the past, as this one big memory, the deadlift bothered me because maybe you pushed too hard than you were capable of, or you thought, well, if my squat's here and I've been deadlifting down here, I'm just going to push really hard.
Yeah.
It did you in. The beautiful thing is that movement can, when prescribed appropriately, I think can help you out. Like deadlifts for back pain, squatting for knee pain. These are things that Corey taught me, and I was like, oh my, this is beautiful. Like, I
pain's
love
an interesting thing. So there's been studies where, you could go in and have pain in a certain joint, and you could have someone look at you, and physically nothing is wrong. But your body can sometimes remember an injury or a pain that sticks around. So it's there's so much that we don't know about it. It's an interesting thing. So I've literally had injuries go away after almost working through them. I'm not recommending work through these painful injuries, but I'm just saying that I almost don't know that if I was completely healed, but the pain just kind of stuck around because I remember it. It's interesting stuff. So
have you heard of the guy going through the woods and gets bit by a snake?
Yeah, this is the.
No,
this is
tell
good.
me.
Okay, so like you said,
I love stories.
So this is not to say that pain is entirely emotional and not physical. That's not true. This story is to show that there is a large connection between what is physically painful and also what is emotionally challenging.
Yeah.
So the story is that a man walks through the brush and he's bit by a snake, but he doesn't know it. He keeps walking out, and then he looks at his leg and he sees that he was bit by a snake, and he freaks the fuck out. He's just bit by a snake. But when he was bit and he keeps walking, he was like, oh, just like a twig. So the next time he goes through, he's walking through the brush. He gets passed by a stick this time, and he freaks out, and he sprints off. Because the way our body works is that we have pain receptors are really just intensity receptors. He felt this certain intensity in that same exact spot, which triggered him to thinking that it was a snake again. And that's important in the instances.
The learning process,
it's
and
important.
with rehab from injuries.
Yeah. And it's also very helpful when back in the day we're trying to escape from like getting killed by a saber-toothed tiger. Where it's not helpful is where we develop avoidance patterns around exercises. And
so in this case, the deadlift.
In this case, the deadlift is that time when he was bit by a snake. But if we avoid the deadlift and we do no deadlifting, and then all we do is squatting, we're just exacerbating the situation.
Yeah, and to bring the point of that too is that stress. And Mike Bledsoe says it to me all the time. It's not what you were doing usually when you got hurt that was hurting you. It's all the stuff.
Something's just a breaking point.
Yeah, that was just the breaking point. It's all the stuff that was before that, and it's all the imbalance that was being built up and the stress and digging this giant hole.
Yeah.
That's what caused you to get hurt.
And oftentimes in weightlifting and CrossFit and any strength sport, that which appears as an acute injury, and I know by definition, so acute is something sudden, right? So my belief is that the accumulation, like Mike said, the accumulation of chronic stresses leads to an acute stress in the strength world with injuries versus saying like a pitcher getting hit with a comeback.
Right. There's very few.
Yeah.
It's like a freak accident if it's acute.
You rarely see freak accidents in the gym. You see these accumulations of overuse / underuse. They're one and the same.
Just like any good divorce, it's hardly ever just like I cheated on someone last night. It's years of years.
Well, that built up to that process, and then you stray.
Like so, yeah.
And then you pay an alimony.
Yeah.
And the cool thing about this, I think, is that we were talking about this earlier. Is this the sexiest topic? Maybe not. Is this a topic that can prevent you from getting injured in the first place? Yes.
Fuck yeah.
And can it help improve your performance? Yes. So like, we don't talk just about structural balance in terms of your strength abilities. We also talk about energetic imbalance.
Right.
So when you guys had Chris Hinshaw on the show, he spoke about how, well, I took Matt Frazier and Rich Froning, and like Rich Froning. I mean, the cool thing about, as an aside, when you're talking about imbalances, in my opinion, doing a one-arm farmer carry is not in and of itself structural balance. I don't think we're talking about balance in terms of like my ability to stand up. We're talking about balance in terms of a relationship
left
between
to right.
two things, left to right, upper
Pushing
versus
and
lower.
pulling. Right.
There has to be some type of correlation, which is what Hinshaw found in Rich, addressing 400-meter times to a mile.
Yeah.
I really like that idea of getting some objective data and using it as a guideline, not as gospel.
Okay.
That sounded good. Using it as a guideline, not as gospel.
Yeah, that's good. What was kind of Chris's remind us?
Well, so Chris was saying that when he looked at beyond the whiteboard and the general, and this leads to a good question that I'm going to ask you guys to switch it off me for a second. But when he looked at 400-meter times versus mile times, that he could see that a certain population was X percentage, or that the decline in speed dropped off X percent from the 400 to the 1 mile. It's like 20%. Rich was at 25%. And for Rich to be 5% behind the general population just means we need to take this energetic imbalance way out in the aerobic world and just like for Jason Kalipa, bring it back in a little bit.
And maybe so you could also look at that and maybe say that predominantly more people were anaerobically powerful versus aerobically powerful.
In the CrossFit community,
I think in the sport of CrossFit, people say that we're training for everything.
Right.
But in my opinion,
are you really?
You're training for everything that maybe the CrossFit
program
Open requires, which makes you a specialist at doing those things.
Yep.
Which might mean, if you're training for the Open, that you might not be doing carrying exercises. You might not be training outside of 30 minutes. I mean, games athletes, entirely different beast.
Sure.
They know what that demand is like. But you become a specialist in that regard.
Yeah, you're training 10, 12-minute AMRAPs.
Yeah. So the idea is that while we want to make sure that things are balanced from a muscular standpoint, that we're also not neglecting basic things energetically.
Got it. I want to backtrack for a second and go back to your biofeedback test that you do with the standing on the box. Something that brought up, I should have asked it earlier, not to get too sidetracked, but what about when we get close to a competition? So you use this test for your athletes to get feedback based on how their body feels, but if you're competing and getting close to a competition, specifically in something like CrossFit, you're going to need to train in fatigue states. That's kind of part of how the competitions run. So what would you say to that?
Super good question. So that's training for specificity for a comp and training for overload. You want to create overload before you peak for performance and before you taper. So for my athletes who are healthy and they're cruising along doing just fine, they might not even do it.
Yeah.
Even for my weightlifters especially who are healthy, I want you to go in the gym and do what I write and just know that you need to attack it on game day.
Yeah.
They might check their flexibility and they might be training a little bit beyond their baseline, but we have the specific competition, so we're not as worried.
Yeah.
I think it goes more generally into that idea of training for competition and training for training.
Sure.
Those look very different.
Well, I think
Longevity.
also too after, my personal experience after working with Zach for a while, I actually start to learn the signals from my body. I learn, all right, when's the day that, like a lot of times, especially recently, I don't even really check my range of motion that much because I can feel whether or not it's going to be good or bad. And I've learned up to that now, like what that feels like. So, I mean, again, if you got to learn how to compete under fatigue, but you may not be actually fatigued.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of times I've come in the gym where I feel bad, but then I'll check my range of motion. And it's fine.
And we've heard those stories too, where you go in the gym and you're like,
How you feel
oh my
is a
god,
lie,
I can't,
John Bros.
I can't believe I PR'd today. I felt wrecked and tired and almost shut it down halfway through and ended up PRing.
Right.
I mean, so it does happen for sure.
And it goes back to that test, and just even if you have a little bit of a doubt, like even if I have a little bit of doubt, I check my range of motion, and it's a reassuring thing. It's like, oh, okay, I'm fine.
I'm fine.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What about what athletes would you not recommend this for? Do you have any that are head cases that might look too much into it and maybe let it get into their head psychologically? They came in and it wasn't perfect, so now they're thinking about it the whole session, or
Totally. So there are, and it comes down to whether the athlete is trying to resolve pain or not.
Yeah.
If they are, I'm going to prioritize this a little bit more. If they reach out to me, because I'm not going to try to fit them into my program if they're not wanting to.
Right, if they're not a good fit.
If they're not a good fit. So it's like, hey, Zach, I would rather you just write sets reps. I'm feeling good, and that's how I'd rather have it. Totally cool. If anything comes up, which in training it always will, we just maybe
don't lie.
we might just reintroduce it. And I think like a big thing, and what I try to do with my athletes is, like, will aches and pains creep up? Yes, but what we're trying to do is prevent those things that are going to keep you out for 2 months, 3 months, make you want to quit. That to me isn't, like, if you hear this a lot. I'll start with a new athlete. They'll say, I have shoulder pain. And the first thing I'll say is, well, what causes that pain? Like, oh, well, I can do muscle ups, handstand push-ups, hang snatches, but there's like one specific part in the clean that just like bugs my shoulder. I was like, okay, well, maybe you don't have an injury because you're doing
all this other stuff.
All these other things. Maybe we need to evaluate if you actually need more or less cleans and just back off for a second. So maybe an injury is not just that little thing that creeps up that prevents you from doing one thing, but that thing that puts you out entirely.
Gotcha.
That's the thing I'm confident I can help my athletes out with.
Gotcha. Okay. Let's change gears for a minute. So you talked about it maybe not being a very sexy topic, so let's make it sexy. I want to know what are some of the most popular movements you use with clients that you've seen great results that most of our listeners and athletes out there are not doing now.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Throw
So
some booty shorts on it.
So we'll start with the CrossFit population. In CrossFit, it's all about functional exercise.
Yeah.
Doing in the gym what you do in real life.
Functional movements.
Training.
Absolutely. Training for life. I would argue that we carry things in our lives more than we do any lifting, squatting, pushing, pulling.
Yeah.
But, and not to CrossFit's detriment, but I think it's just a logistical thing. CrossFit gyms don't program carrying exercises. So, earlier today we're doing heavy farmer carries or heavy yoke carries, working with farmer carry handles, a lot of strongman type equipment. Maybe your best way to kind of like tap into that to make sure your athletes aren't completely deprived of it is just put some stability work in your warm-ups.
Yeah.
You might have them carry a dumbbell or a kettlebell overhead. You might have them do a dumbbell or kettlebell by your side. Or even do like a cash out after. You might have a yoke at your gym or farmer carry handles. Like, hey guys, we're gonna like build up to a heavy 50-meter carry. That could be great for CrossFit athletes. That's number one, is the carrying. Number two would be pulling up under your chin. So in CrossFit, a lot of downward pulling occurs, and sometimes not so clearly. So if you're doing a toes to bar, you're pulling your body down on the bar.
Yep.
It's called a pull up, but you're pulling down.
Right.
Sure.
Rope climb, pulling down.
Yep.
The snatch and the clean, we use our legs to give the bar a height, and then we pull under.
Yeah,
not very
it's
isolated in the
it's
upper
very
body.
little.
No.
actual
Sumo high
pulling.
pull might be the only one
pulling
that's
up.
kind of relatively close to that.
And that was the exercise in like 2011 that people were like, this isn't, speaking of sexy, they're like, this isn't a sexy exercise.
Well, I think the argument, too, was that it was quote-unquote dangerous.
Or quote-unquote injurious. So I don't...
Dude, don't hold back.
Don't hold
you
back,
got nothing
man.
to be afraid of.
Yeah, dude.
There are some times when studies come out, and when those studies come out, they're taken as gospel. This exercise is injurious. Did you look at whether it was tested on healthy human
Healthy people,
populations
yeah,
or like
exactly.
cadaveric discs and tissues? What does the rest of that literature say? Unfortunately, it's in a world of publish or perish where you're not going to see a lot of those follow-up studies. But I will say that I, for a lot of my CrossFit athletes, have gotten them feeling healthier and out of pain by giving them more upward pulling to be balanced with pushing.
Okay,
mean,
I was
by
about to
nature-
ask.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to ask, why is it better? But you said because of the amount of volume we're doing in this pulling plane, that we need to have something kind of to counteract
Correct.
that, and balance in the shoulder.
And even something perhaps as a pull or
Horizontal.
as a row.
Yeah.
So, yeah, like no exercise in and of itself is like this magical be-all be-all exercise. So what I tell for my CrossFit athletes is, can you push over your head what you can pull under your chin? Can you shoulder press what you can high pull? With a dumbbell in each hand or with the barbell?
Hips?
Strict.
Okay.
Can you balance those two out? Can you do as many chest to bar pull-ups as you can do dips? That's kind of where I start.
Okay.
For
a CrossFit population.
For a CrossFit population, because I see a lot more shoulder injuries in the CrossFit population than I do in the weightlifting population. And in CrossFit, you may see a lot of people doing chin-ups versus chest to bar. I was taught and do still believe that if we make the chest to bar the standard, we involve a healthier, fuller range of motion where the shoulders have to fully retract and downwardly rotate.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're getting just the chin up, it's not the full benefit. It's the same as doing a dip to where your elbow's parallel to your shoulder versus going like way the fuck down.
Yeah.
So I think dips and pull-ups, are those balanced? I'll say this, I haven't worked with someone who has shoulder pain who isn't equal in those 4 areas.
Gotcha. Colin Garrity with Power Monkey Fitness teaches pull-ups the same way. He's like, why are we setting the standard at bar or even just chest? He treats them to pull as high as you can on every rep.
Yeah. So, and I think what that does also, it's like I talk with Travis Mash, who's a good friend of mine, and we talk about like raising athletes' expectations. Right? Like if you tell an athlete the standard is a chest bar pull-up, or someone comes into your gym for the first time, it's not going to be like, oh shit, the Opens program chest to bars and I've only been doing chin-ups. It's like, no, your gym said that chest to bar is the standard, and that's all you know. So that's
okay, so we have carries. You said upright rows.
Upright rows being it seems like a very small, but I think
for shoulder
important
balance
role. If you can do many more upright rows than you can push over your head, then you don't want as many upright rows.
Gotcha.
But you just don't see that as much in CrossFit because the upright rows are, for the most part, absent.
I do not think I could upright row 230 pounds.
Yeah, so
I got 230 press. There's no way I could go.
Do you guys know?
Or should they be? You said they should be equal, or should they be kind of
equal in weight? I mean, it's that same thing. If they're 5 pounds off, does it matter?
Right.
No. Is it like my shoulder press is 155 pounds by 10? And then like 75 pounds under my chin. That's what we're talking. It's like the minutia doesn't matter. It's like what are the gaping holes?
Okay.
Yeah. And I mean, how would you? I guess. Yeah. How would you train somebody to do that? Would you program them more, or would you program them other things like accessory work to build that up? Like, how would you do that?
I'll train that, and if anyone has discomfort, then I'll just try. Like, if they have discomfort with a narrow grip and they haven't done it, I might just do one arm.
Yeah.
I might try to say, well, maybe like put yourself in a slightly different position that allows you to do it comfortably, and then build from there.
Maybe start with lower reps, because that's kind of an awkward movement to try and do heavy.
So
put a lot of stress on the shoulder.
It's not an exercise that I program for like 1 to 6 at all. It's maybe like 10
But
to
going
12.
back to what you said, I like what you said about that. People see one study or one thing that says something is dangerous or injurious, and they take it as gospel. It's like,
maybe it's in line with what they want to hear.
Right.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. Here's the fucking thing. All exercise is dangerous. All exercise, like any movements, right? You just learn how to do it, or you do it with a weight that you can manage. Like, I was posting on Instagram the other day about Turkish get-ups. People hate on Turkish get-ups.
You made a big mistake. He didn't realize that people get sensitive about Turkish get-ups. Really? With the hip bridge in the middle, that's like the big thing.
Like people hate on Turkish get-ups,
Why?
and I'm like, I mean, apparently it's just injurious or whatever.
What I know is that, and this is a little aside, is like the Turkish get-up is like, if you do a Turkish get-up and there isn't a kettlebell expert around, and you don't bridge your hips in the middle, it's like doing touch-and-go snatches to a weightlifting coach who's never seen it before.
Yeah.
Oh.
Okay.
But
but still, I mean, all movements, all exercises do have risk involved. But if you can learn how to do it properly, and then also too, like when you know your limit, which is why the test is very useful. You know your limit. You know how hard you can go on it.
Yeah.
I have another question. Is there a third?
There is a third.
Okay, what is it?
And I promised that I wouldn't do like this.
Yeah. Well, it's easy for the listeners. Carries, upright rows.
Carries,
and
upright rows. And for CrossFitters, the last thing would be that we have a very good breadth of discussion and literature talking about technique, but not as much discussion about the speed with which you perform that technique. Meaning, if you're doing touch and go deadlifts, and you might have seen this in your gym, this guy who stays in flexion, braced flexion the whole time.
So what do you mean by that?
By braced flexion is like what Alex is showing. It's just like, and he's just going on, and he's like, hey guys, and you're like covering your eyes, you can't look at it, and then he leaves like, bye guys.
Ninja Turtle back, basically.
Ninja Turtle back, but and somehow, and I think most people have seen this, they're like, how isn't this guy getting injured? I'm not advocating for a flex back position with every training session. I'm just trying to say and we can dive into that more, but you might see someone with a flex back do deadlifts and be fine and walk away, and you're like, well, why does that happen? Yet someone with perfect form gets injured on a deadlift.
Yeah.
Well, what we found, what Corey, the chiropractor, brought to my attention is like, well, we have these tempos. You often see like 5-0-x1, 3-0-x1.
What is tempo?
Oh my gosh! Any coach or program designer out there knows what we're laughing about.
We joked about that.
Yeah.
But the point is like, so what's the point behind, or no, what's at the root of every tempo? The up is always faster than the down. The up is
slow eccentric.
The up is always faster than the down, and there's a reason that it's programmed that way. If you are moving downwards faster than you can move upwards, there can be sudden, crazy movement. It doesn't matter how perfect your form appears at the start, that we just can't anticipate. Meaning, if someone sets up for a deadlift with a perfectly flat back and they pull it up and then they crash it down and then they grind each rep and then crash and grind each rep, that's going to, in my opinion, in my observation, more likely lead to injury.
Okay, a good example is track and field sports. A high knee injury rate is because a lot of people lack eccentric strength or control. So if you see someone that tears their ACL when they're running, they go to decelerate and turn, they don't have the eccentric strength to control that deceleration, which is why you see a lot of injuries. So we talked about that earlier briefly on why eccentric strength is so important. And it's in actually Cal Dietz, who's been on our show, his book Triphasic Training has a great explanation of all this. But training that eccentric strength so you can absorb that impact a lot better is generally what makes a better athlete and will highly decrease your chance of injury because you can control that momentum.
And this is not, so what I've found happen is that, and this just might be the way to go for CrossFit gym owners, if you write a tempo on the board and after you've answered like all those questions about
what is 5-0
tempo,
X1?
Like, what is alpha or lambda? Once you answer those questions, people generally stick to them. The second you don't write tempo, people are like, oh, I'm just going to like do whatever I want. So either I think people should always write tempo, but I don't think that is maybe realistic or effective over time, but just also encourage that when someone's squatting or deadlifting or pressing is, can you raise the weight faster than you can slow it down? If I'm doing presses, can I push it up with just a tiny bit more speed than I go down rather than have it like crash janky on the way up, crash janky on the way up? So, I just always say, stand up quickly, lower just a tiny bit slower.
Yeah, and just to ensure you have control.
Just to ensure that you have control and don't suddenly mess yourself up. Because like you said, like that ability to slow down and retransmit speed in sport and in real life is huge.
So,
that's what
we are eccentric beings. We're meant to absorb and retransmit force.
Well, going back to the deadlift analogy, the story that you were using as one of my physical therapists is actually over here, but he was telling me that it's not when we don't get hurt when we stay in flexion or extension. We get hurt when there's a quick sudden movement between flexion and extension.
Or the position changes.
The position changes,
right. What will ensure that you quickly lose position?
Going fast, like
crashing down and grinding up.
Right.
And so what we saw and what we observed, and we have footage on this, and you can head over and check the video. I think, CTP, you got this. But, Mike, you were doing deadlifts, and you were hitting the ground with speed, but you were still coming up quick.
Yeah.
You were in control the whole time. I don't know if you think back on that and observe that. There was never a crash and a grind. It was down and then up just as fast.
Right.
Yeah.
Each
rep.
Like the same thing goes with squats. Like for so long, like even me, I used to try to accelerate down to the bottom to catch the bounce, or utilize the stretch reflex and grind up.
Yeah.
And now I squat completely differently. I try to control the eccentric. I maintain position a lot better, because a lot of people think like, oh, okay, I'm gonna catch this bounce. But the thing is, you catch that, you hit so hard in the bottom, it caves you. You crumble.
Yeah.
And then you're in a bad position where you can't actually put force on the bar.
I was just going to bring that up. That further proves the point of being strong in the eccentric portion is that you talk about why you would lose position going fast. For a clean, for example, if you're someone who cleans and tries to fall into the bar fast or pull under fast and you get crushed every time, do some more work in the eccentric portion of the lift, because it'll give you more control to maintain that stability during the lift.
Especially for weightlifters too. So weightlifters only pull from a dead stop. It's concentric.
It's only concentric.
Almost always.
Yeah.
So we're not saying
you drop the bar. You don't ever lower it down.
You never lower it down.
Yeah.
So we're not saying that you should go deliberately slow always. We're just saying that there should be control to allow the positions to align and then attack with speed on the way up.
Gotcha.
Because if you're only ever doing concentric, it's going to catch up to you. In one,
I think even
one way.
with CrossFit, even with deadlifts, like I did that competition in St. Louis, and we were doing touch and go deadlifts. If you stay tight, which means you have good eccentric control, that bar is not going to feel heavy coming back off the ground for multiple reps.
Yeah. So number 3, the good point would be to train the eccentric more often. And we've always talked about eccentric training in terms of time under tension for like muscle growth. Rarely have we brought up this point on how much control it gives you in sorry, lost track for a second there. Oh, sorry. On how much control it gives you in movements to reduce injury and keep the concentric more powerful and faster.
And also from a weightlifting standpoint, this is a study that Andy Galpin shared not too long ago, was that he looked at, or this research that he shared, looked at isometric, which means that you are basically holding a position still, versus concentric versus eccentric, that in the eccentric portion of the exercise, the most learning occurred in certain parts of the brain.
Gotcha. So let's go back to number 1 for a second. So you talked about heavy carries. We didn't really go into why those are really important to develop strength, or what they're actually doing. Maybe we touched on it a little bit about balance, but what are we really trying to get out of that? What are we looking for?
Yeah, so in terms of the functional world, I would say that the idea of functional fitness is you do in the gym what you do in real life. If you squat in real life and can add load to a squat, and that makes you stronger, then you can carry in the gym as you would in real life and add load to that and make you stronger.
Gotcha.
For a weightlifter, I've given front racks. There's a video of Alex and I doing front rack carries from earlier today of front rack yoke carries. This challenges the breathing musculature.
It's not for the faint of heart, I'll tell you that right
brutal.
now.
Front rack yoke carries are brutal.
But it challenges the breathing musculature and it challenges the torso. What else does that? Standing up with a really heavy clean. What else does that? A front squat. So what fatigues on a front squat first? It's really not the legs. You often see that turtle shell position coming up. So if on a day my athlete's not doing a front squat, but I want to train the mid and upper back and spinal erectors, I might have them carry instead, and we can address that weakness there.
So, I was gonna ask. So, what if I was an athlete and I wanted to have like a structural balance program? Like you talked about, kind of the 4 main parts. There's pushing, pulling, carrying, and squatting. How would I go about like maybe creating a program for myself or just for an athlete that's balanced?
Yeah. So maybe if you're a coach who's used to programming. Look at the program you write, tally up how many you've written of a single exercise, and know
I wonder how many coaches do that.
Your own, or
we got on a little rant yesterday at dinner.
Hopefully
where
a
lot of people.
I don't. So I think that this idea is like it's a hot topic. Not hot topic. People talk about it a lot. It's just not evident in the programming. So look at your program. If you're a gym owner, look at your program. Tally up lifting, squatting, pushing, pulling, and if it's not somewhat cohesive, maybe just take that pull, put in a squat. Take out this lift, put in a push.
It's about counting all the reps.
Count all of them.
Yeah.
Count all of them. Because, like we said, is it bad if you have 1 or 2 more squats than you have a deadlift? No. It's like the 85 to 87% argument in the front squat to a back squat. It's, wow, I just programmed 1 deadlift for my whole CrossFit gym in the past month, and 20 squats.
Would
Yeah.
you say it's a good idea to maybe look at, so for a CrossFit gym who wants to have their athletes prepared for the open, but they want to have them structurally balanced and healthy as well, would you say it's a good idea to look at the volume of reps that are in the open and then back into it that way, since that's kind of a specific need? Generally saying that the open has like a ton of pull-ups, a ton of upper body pulling, like.
So then that's when you become, so let's just say you're training for competition, you're 6 months to 10 months away from the open. It might have even just happened. Well, then I might be giving my general population of athletes something that's a little bit more even.
Gotcha.
If I want to get my athletes really good at the open, what I would do and what I do is, let's just say for general pop first.
Sorry, go ahead.
Is that like the most common?
You said doo-doo.
You do.
I said doo-doo. But what I would do is I would have, I would look back at past open workouts, tally up what was there, and then maybe reflect that in training.
Gotcha.
So it's just to get them
curious.
prepared.
I wasn't expecting a right or wrong answer. I just wanted to hear your thoughts on it.
That was your opinion. Do you
I
feel
think that was a good question.
Do you feel that the open workouts are a good test?
Oh yeah, I mean for what they're trying to accomplish and getting the best people to regionals, I think Mike, you might be best posed to answer that question.
My opinion doesn't mean shit.
But I'm curious.
My opinion on it, I think for testing for the fittest to go to the games, for sure. For a general population fitness test, I don't know, maybe not necessarily. There could be a lot of things. It just depends what your idea of fitness is.
Yeah.
And to them, it's CrossFit, and it's a good way to see, are we getting better year to year based on what our idea of it is.
Increasing work capacity.
Yeah. So.
Yeah.
Retesting each year on similar workouts is a good way to see if people are getting better.
And we've had this talk, I'd be curious to hear your thoughts on this. Is when you look at CrossFit has its pillars of fitness. I look at CrossFit and I see a skill sport primarily, meaning that your engine will stop before you're able to perform a skill, or rather, you will be limited in a skill before you're able to.
For most people in the open, it's generally skill limiting.
Right.
Yeah. Would you say in general that CrossFit is skill?
Yeah, for
limited?
sure. Scaling is one of the most popular things in CrossFit. Most people have to come in and scale movements because they can't do most of them based on what's prescribed.
Yeah. Even barbell work, being able to cycle a barbell and do reps with touch and go and things like that, that is a skill. Like, speaking of coming from weightlifting, I'm having to learn how to touch and go now.
Yeah.
And that's a huge skill. And one of the things that we were talking about earlier is we were talking about Rich and why he's so good. Well, Rich is highly skilled.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's strong. He's very balanced in his strength. What would you say he's like the most
crazy.
like strength balanced?
Yep.
Like,
are you talking about Rich
Froning? Yeah, Rich Froning.
Froning. Gotcha.
I feel like everybody who if you listen to this podcast, you don't know what Rich Froning is. I don't know. But yeah, he's like one of the most balanced in strength.
Yeah.
And if you watch him, like when we went to Cookeville and watched him, it's like he moves with such high quality and skill that it's almost effortless. The efficiency, his movement efficiency is so good. It's why he can probably go super, like what he like other people would completely, they'll redline. His is what Zach likes to call without tension, which is basically how do you define that?
It's so lighter in intensity, longer in duration aerobic work. So if you had a heart rate monitor, you'd be using probably about 70% of your max heart rate, and you'd be going from there just to help improve your cardiovascular system versus maybe the 10-minute AMRAP.
But it's almost like his 70% or 75% is everybody else's like 95.
Yeah.
Because he's just making it. He moves so well, and he's also very balanced.
Well, his efficiency too, like most of his limiters are going to come down to his engine because he's so good at the movements.
Yeah.
Rarely, he's still like muscle endurance issues, like if muscle ups, things like that would be a limiter for him relative to the high field. But like in terms of the main workouts, it just comes down to how much capacity he actually has, and he has a lot.
And that's where competition can help you figure out this general topic of strengths and weaknesses, because if Rich goes to the games and he has these consecutive like near last place finishes, that's direct feedback where he's weak,
he goes
so
and
he
works
can
on
improve on it. Like I remember AJ Roberts, this might have been through like not a CrossFit podcast, but through like one of those original CrossFit journals, when AJ was asked, well, what happens if I squat 1,000 pounds, but this guy's over here doing a reverse hyper with like 100 more pounds than I'm using. Competition brings those comparisons out. He's like, well, that means that I'm going to use the reverse hyper to address my weaknesses because this guy and I have the same squat, but he's doing way more on the hyper. Just like Rich can look at competition. So if you don't have the privilege of competing and getting that feedback as to like, man, I really need to work on these areas.
You got to look at those numbers.
You got to look at those numbers. And if you don't have the this might sound weird, but if you're not injured to then learn how to refix things and you're healthy already, you can take this information to just not only be better preventative, but also move forward with better performance.
When we were in Cookeville too, I also noticed he's on the whey protein.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
No,
So,
I mean, this has been game changer for me. Like, I think a lot of people see this stuff as like not sexy or not cool. Like, even they'll be like, what is this dude like just bending over touching his toes? Like, don't throw that shit out. Like, that shit it works. It is I think it's a great tool. And I mean, it's helped me a lot.
is that
like,
another one where is that someone actually said that to you, or like the haircut?
No, yeah.
There's some haters.
I hear people all the time talk about that.
You
it's like,
toe touching
No, I know what you mean. This stuff, it's not. Yeah,
It's
we call it
different.
the unsexy work, and it's super important.
It's different.
and it's hard to get people to buy into it, but that's why I like to test so much, because that just kind of shows you, oh shit, like it's a wake up call. Plus, being able to lift without pain, like I was on the verge of quitting completely. So being able to now actually do the things that I like doing and training without pain is super huge.
The truth is, in our community, and I'm even guilty of it, most people are reactive to injuries.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
they don't do this stuff until something's wrong. So like you said, most of your athletes that come to you are probably already hurt, which is kind of tough as a coach too, because it's a lot of extra work when you got someone hurt. You can't just write them anything. You've got to be very careful about what movements to select and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So
That's kind of what I love.
Yeah.
Like, I really, that's like if someone comes to me and they're in that state, like I thrive on that, like because
that's a problem to fix.
Yeah,
it's awesome.
it's like wow, like the way that Corey Duvall framed this is he's like area of opportunity.
Yeah.
I remember when I went out to Asheville, I was in Alex's shoes, could hardly bend over, asking why I was deadlifting with back pain, and he's like, "You squatted 400 pounds, and your best deadlift's 350."
Yeah.
He's like, it's not bad. It's just an area you can improve.
Sure.
And when I heard that, I was like, you're telling me that my injury could be reframed in a positive light? It was just like total game changer.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Interesting.
it was
So
awesome.
I think you hit a good point with that is if you have an opportunity to bring someone out of that and show them that this can make them feel better, you got them for a while. They're gonna be stuck to that, and they're not gonna want to go back.
Yeah, exactly. And you can then allow people to dive into their specialties, and by that time, or whatever specialties call to them, and you kind of, at that time, know the little dosages of certain weaknesses they need to keep them up so that they can dive into whatever endeavor, but not go over the top.
So one of my final questions is, okay, let's say I'm just a regular, dude going to the CrossFit classes and stuff like that. How can I incorporate some of these principles just, for myself?
Yeah, so that's a good question. It's hard to incorporate this biofeedback before or during a class if the whole class isn't involved. We had tried that with a class, and it didn't really work. I don't think it works best in a group setting, so I would maybe leave the biofeedback out in a group class setting, although hopefully as more people try this out, they're wanting and maybe able to find a way to best do that.
Yeah.
But I would just maybe tell myself, okay, if I'm the athlete, I'm not the gym owner who's running the program, I might even look at the program, start tallying up all those areas we spoke about. And if I know I only got one deadlift, my deadlift's weak, I might come into open gym and do maybe one or two more deadlift sessions that week.
Yeah.
In case there were questions that we didn't answer about some of the biofeedback, where can people go get more info on that?
Yeah, so specifically for the biofeedback, I have some video on it on my YouTube channel.
What's your YouTube channel?
It's just Strength Ratio.
Okay.
We just filmed video about it.
YouTube.com/strength ratio channel.
I don't know the hyperlink for YouTube. I speak
now I don't have to do show notes.
I speak a lot about it on my Instagram, just at Strength Ratio. And we also filmed, you can check it out on Barbell Shrugged.
And you,
I'll be putting some videos that we filmed today of Alex and McGee training and kind of you talking them through it. It's pretty cool.
And you're at strengthratio.com, right?
Strengthratio.com.
Hold on, y'all about to shut this shit down? Because I was certainly going to bring up the Ninja Turtles movie still. Can we talk about that?
We'll talk about whatever you want.
Okay. You can
No, go ahead. You're the guest.
I was going to say that, so Alex, and the funny thing, that we're working together now is I met CTP at Travis Mash's Strength Spectacular.
Yeah. Which is dope, by the way.
Yeah. Well, he's doing the Masters.
It's
this weekend.
Yeah,
the Masters.
Yeah, but he's going to do the Spectacular again next year.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it was awesome. So I tagged along. In fact, CTP, you were on Travis's podcast, and so was Doug and Chris. And Becca Gurdon and I just kind of slipped in and just like hung out and watched the podcast go down. And Alex you were probably in your room trying to make weight because you weren't with us.
Was this
that
the night before? Oh yeah. When I was probably taking. I was taking that green alcohol bath.
And there was a really great moment in the night. We all went out for sushi. Doug, Chris, myself, Becca, Travis, CTP, and Travis in his like raspy, sexy voice. I'm like Travis.
Travis has an awesome voice.
I'm trying to I quietly work on my Travis to like I can't. And
you can't do it. Nobody can do it.
But Travis does this. I'll try, but I probably won't. He's looking at Chris Moore across from the table at this sushi bar, and Chris says, he's like, I will drink you under the table. I'm gonna sake bomb this so much faster than you. And Travis, he turns around and he takes his baby boy Rock, and he's like, Becca, hold my boy. And then he like comes back, and I have videos on my phone.
I think it popped into my time hop.
1, 2, 3, go. And Travis, it was just like go and down, and you see Chris's eyes just like
while he's mid-drink.
Mid-drink. And that was a moment I'll never forget. But it's funny because I remember watching Alex compete that day and then qualifying for the American Open. So it's cool how it's come back around like this.
Yeah,
but
man, we're glad you came out.
Yeah. Oh, no. Thanks so much for having me. It's been awesome.
So, wait, what about the Ninja Turtles movie?
That shit was fucking awesome. So they made
Should I grab the camera and turn it?
Yeah. No, it's going to take too long. But that shit was on point. So they made a part. They came out with the Turtles a couple years ago, right? You seen it?
Yep.
The CGI Turtles with who's the chick?
Megan Fox.
Megan Fox is April O'Neil, right? So it's okay. It's a decent movie. Whatever. It's not. It's not my
they
favorite.
had Juicy J do the soundtrack.
Yeah, that's right. That's
Memphis.
Right. But this part 2 though.
Oh, okay.
This part 2 though. It's it's still got 20% on Rotten Tomatoes, but fuck those guys.
I don't like. You know what? Fuck Rotten Tomatoes. A lot of stuff I see on Rotten Tomatoes that has like bad ratings, I love. So maybe I just like fucking bad movies.
Here's the thing. Don't watch it as, how old are you, 20, not 30?
30,
Don't watch it as 30-year-old Alex Macklin.
Right.
You watch this as 5-year-old Alex Macklin whose dreams just fucking came true. This is the first movie that Bebop, Rocksteady, Krang, motherfucking Krang's in there. Fucking Casey Jones.
Casey Jones?
Oh, my God. Hold on, time out. The Technodrome.
Oh, shit.
Has there been an episode where the camera's on you?
Yeah, I've been on some shows.
Okay. Oh, yeah. No.
It's okay.
Well, and I actually just have a question for you guys because like we talk about training all the time. I've been listening to the show for I remember studying for final exams in college and listening to Shrug
shit.
Not too long ago.
It is full circle.
And it totally is full circle. And like I've been able to like kind of digest and like really take in a lot. And I think if you're like me studying exercise, sports science, like guy, girl, whatever age, like if you're not taking notes on in some way, shape, or form, or learning something, or just like some way to remember this stuff because there's such great information out there, then I think you're shooting yourself in the foot. But I wanted to ask you guys if you feel or make the time to like stop and absorb what you've just interviewed or have learned.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
The guests that we've had on since I started, I try to buy the products that they have.
Okay.
You know, things like Cal's book, Triphasic Training. Those are like amazing takeaways because just getting an hour with that person, it drums up so many more questions that I have. So now I'm interested to go and learn more about the biofeedback training and how I could apply it with my clients. Last episode we did on technique, I learned a lot about prescribing technical maxes and technical gymnastics movements.
Yeah, we did with Doug.
It wasn't necessarily the last episode that posted, but the last one we filmed.
Yeah, sorry, it's coming up soon, but those kinds of things I like to continuously add to what I'm learning right now and applying them to how I train my clients.
Same thing with like metabolic flexibility with Mike Nelson. Like I loved hearing about that kind of stuff, and he was on the kind of opposite side of the coin about the keto diet, but I'm becoming more interested in nutrition. Looking outside and trying to learn about as much about that as possible. Yeah, for sure.
That's awesome.
Yeah, good question.
I mean,
thank you for asking.
We're still learning. Hey, that's how we do it. We learn as we're on the show. You know.
Yeah.
So.
Zach, man.
Yeah, but did you hear the technodromes in this motherfucker?
I know. I was like, CGP was like so passive talking about the.
I gotta watch it first before I get that fired up. I can't get fired up for a movie I haven't seen yet.
I'll watch it again.
Okay. Is it okay? Because the rest of the Turtles movies have been kind of garbage. So
no, but this is the first one that follows the cartoon storyline from when we were kids. All of them have avoided it for some reason.
Teenage
and then in addition,
that's even at the end.
Oh snap!
Yeah.
Oh shit!
The show that just got me like. Finally, I finished it, so I'm back in the gym doing like normal things. Have you? And I don't know if we're gonna edit this out because it has nothing to do with the podcast. Have you guys seen Stranger Things? I know I'm late to this party.
Oh, it's great.
No, I haven't. I've heard I need to really bad.
Yeah, it's really good.
I haven't watched it. But
my god!
What about it?
Watch it.
Oh, I've seen it.
Yeah.
What do you love?
Oh, talking to the audience.
Oh, everything. Like I was just like I hadn't binged like that since
I hear
Lost.
if you're an '80s child, it's amazing.
Oh, you're gonna lose your mind.
That's
cool.
So
like. That's important. I want
next
people to
brought
go
to you by
watch
Stranger Things. I'm going to go watch it this weekend. Zach, man, appreciate you coming out. This was a blast.
Yeah, this is
smart
awesome.
dude.
This is awesome.
Very excited to learn more from you. And
you guys as well.
Again, just for the listeners, where else could they find you? You've got Strength Ratio. You've got Strength Ratio on YouTube channel.
Yep, strengthratio.com.
Anything else you want to plug?
So I offer individualized programming on-site in Asheville and abroad. We also have a gym in Asheville. There's a weightlifting team that you can become a part of. And for the affiliates maybe struggling or wanting to apply some of what we've spoken about today, we're also coming out with affiliate programming that can best help keep your athletes safe.
That's huge.
Yeah.
For me, go to barbellshrugged.com, sign up for the newsletter. That's all for me.
For me? Why don't you motherfuckers, since you've watched this far into the video, go ahead and click that little thumbs up, guys.
Oh, yeah.
Are people still listening?
Hey, give me a thumbs up.
Give us go on iTunes, give us 5 stars. Give us 5-star rating.
Hey, it's really, you know what? I want to thank the shit out of the people who do that because I know that it's like, that's not the easiest thing to like go dig up.
Sometimes you got to log in.
Technically, it is easy, but I know it's like kind of a pain in the dick.
Yeah.
So for the people who do go take the time to fucking, open up their iTunes, go find the thing, go give us a 5-star review. Fucking thank you. Awesome.
And I got something to add to that with comments. We hear all the time how some people like certain shows. Look, and I hear probably a lot of negative comments too, then those tend to stick out. If you've got something positive to say or something you learned from a show, share it, right? We want to hear that stuff. I'm not saying if you have an argument or anything, you can't post it. Argue with us. I don't care. But if you like something, share it. Tell people about it. Let us know. That feedback goes a long way as well.
Oh, and I would also say lastly, if you guys, because I understand, especially for the people who are only listening via audio, if you have any questions about anything we've spoken about, flexibility testing or any of the ratios, you can email me at strengthratio@gmail.com, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Just big, veiny dick pics.
That's your stiffness test right there. That's the stiffness. See how stiff
and my mic is off.
When you just said I know it's a pain in the dick, I never heard that before.
You never heard that?
I heard pain in the ass, not pain in the dick.
You never heard pain in the dick?
That's a whole nother kind of pain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
the kind of pain that the fucking dude. So Raphael, he's in the back of the turtle truck. Hold on, time out. I'm not kidding. It's the first time that turtle truck I think has been in there full force, right?
Yeah.
It shoots the sewer things at the front.
Oh, that's what it was.
But this motherfucker comes out the back. He ain't playing. They're trying to fuck with him in the truck, and then finally he's like, I gotta get out the truck. He goes, I gotta get out the truck. Raphael, yeah. He busts out. He jumps out of the back, and he fucking does a double clothesline onto 2 dudes with motorcycles. Oh, it's so good.
With the side things or whatever. Does he have?
No, this is straight guns.
Oh, okay, yeah. That was Raphael is my favorite one with the little size, whatever the hell they call them.
He's cool but rude.
Tridents.
And Michelangelo, he's a part of it.
They're called size. They're called size.
Size. Okay. Trident's a long one.
Yeah.
Trident's like the long, pokey one. like the dude
like
in the ocean.
Poseidon.
Yeah, he has a trident. My bad.
Yeah. So those are the
size.
like
a
ones are size.
Yeah, it's like a pitchfork. There you go.
Yeah.
Nice.
Hey,
Can we be the turtles for Halloween? Who would be our fourth guy?
I've definitely got to be Michelangelo.
I feel like
I got to be Donatello.
I feel like people do the turtles a lot. It's kind of overdone. I don't know.
He's out. How about let's be Bebop and Rocksteady, just us.
Word.
No, I was Casey Jones like 2 years ago.
People already do that.
Whatever.
Right. Pixar didn't have
Whatever.
Casey Jones is white.
Let's do the.
Oh, wow, we going there.
Not on this podcast. Not on this podcast.
Inside joke.
How much can you overhead squat?
Not very much, but it's more my mobility. It's not my shoulders. So.
Can you swim?
Oh my god.
No.
People who don't know what we're
stereotypes.
making fun of.
Yeah, we need to stop.
Just
All
keep
right.
that video in the safe and then bring it out when you
All
forget.
right, whatever. We done. We get off the mic. Get off the mic. What's up?
Let's do the intro. If you're still around, I'm sorry.
Hey, we're gonna actually do the audio intro, but attach it
People
to
are
the video
unliking
version.
the more we continue.
No, it's all right.
People are like, you know what? I actually liked it because you were sincere, and then I unliked it because you were an asshole.
Wait. What we talking about?
We're talking about when he asked people to give us thumbs up and like and stuff.
Well, you know, we always have one person that hits the dislike button on YouTube. So, you know, shout out to that person, dude. Yeah, man.
Yeah, but you know what? Speaking of ratios, we're not worried about that shit.
Yeah, we got mad ratio on the like side and just, you know, one. So, you know, well, whatever.
I wonder what our most disliked video is.
Who knows?
If you're at a 40% dislike, then we'll look at it. But if you're at 98% like, that's where we're fine. We're not gonna worry about it.
Go ahead and do the.
That's what Zach Greenwald said.
Go ahead and do the audio intro.
This week on Barbell Shrugged.
Wait, this comes before? This is at the end.
He's gonna cut this, yeah.
Or probably not. CDP will
This
leave
week
us.
on Barbell Shrugged, we interview Zach Greenwald. We talk about biofeedback,
Structural balance.
and Ninja
Ninja
Turtles.
And Ninja Turtles.
Yeah, perfect.
All right. Later, pimps.